so that's a real key issue that people find, and often they'll think, oh, wow, I'm on social media, I need to put my full self and my cat photos and all of that up there.
I've got to ask where it goes wrong. And to be honest, people are always interested in what are the biggest mistakes that you see people make when it comes to personal branding?
People buy people, especially if you're selling a service. You have to have that classic thing of developed a relationship. You need to have built trust.
Hi friends, welcome to a new episode of Between Me and You. Today I'm joined by Will Sawney, an independent consultant who works with professional service companies and you'll provide strategic growth services and content. It says here, Will, that you help stage founders and scale-ups transition out of solely relying on their network to scaling up. So we're going to be talking about personal branding today, something I myself don't know a lot about. We'll be diving into how to create authentic content, including the use of AI, which I'm going to be interested to learn how that's going to work, and explore how personal branding and larger campaign content can drive organizational growth. I invite you to join us, share your thoughts in the comments, and let's get into this important conversation. All right, Will, thank you for joining me today. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a bit of background.
Yeah, sure. So I've had a full career in marketing. I absolutely love it. At school, I did design, English and business studies, so I feel like it was destined to be. And most recently I've worked predominantly in the professional services sector, which initially I thought felt a bit dull. My early career was in theatre, and so yeah, I worked in the Edinburgh Fringe and in theatre and live music festivals, comedy, and then got into professional services and went, is this really for me? But actually I found that I really love it because it is very personal, people driven. So I have to work with people to get the best out of them. As we talked about, we're going to cover personal branding. So yeah, I find that creative element actually has a real strong resonance in the industry.
Let's start with a sort of crucial question, because there might be people here listening in that are new to the concept. Can you tell us what exactly is personal branding?
Yeah, so I think the core is that people buy people, especially if you're selling a service. You have to have that classic thing of developed a relationship. You need to have built trust. So personal branding is a way to do that in the same way that you would if you're sitting in front of somebody and you're having a conversation. Personal branding is putting that out into the wider digital world, allowing you to do that at a bigger scale and to people that you've just met in that online world. So the real difference is that in a conversation you can have a two-way dialogue. With personal branding, a lot of it is putting a lot of yourself out there, and you have to trust that that stuff that you're saying is going to eventually come back to you and be able to start those relationships.
How do I know how much of myself I have to put out? And how do I know, do I have to be entirely truthful?
Yeah, so that's a real key issue that people find, and often they'll think, oh, wow, I'm on social media, I need to put my full self and my cat photos and all of that up there to get traction, which does work to get engagement, that's for sure. But what's really important is finding that balance between the professional you and the personal you. If you can fit in that middle spot that goes, yes, I've got this really strong professional value and knowledge and expertise, but I'm a human, you can relate to me. That's really where you have to find that balance.
Yeah. So me and you, and also your own clients, a lot of them are purpose-driven organizations. So where does personal branding fit in for them?
Yeah, you've got such an advantage if you've got those strong values and that purpose-driven ethos. Like already you've got a huge wealth of stuff to be talking about that is almost guaranteed to get much more engagement, much more interest out of people, rather than just talking about I'll make you more money, or here's the specific functional service that I do. I see a lot of people like achieve amazingly higher engagement by sharing why they're doing things and what it means to their network. Um, like for example, I was working with a company a couple of weeks ago who they work a lot with refugees, and they had an announcement where they were expanding what they were doing to also work with other marginalized groups. And the CEO put that out there, and it was so perfect because it helped to build her business because it was a core component of what they do, but also it was such a strong value that people kind of rallied around, and it created a real buzz about it. So yeah, I think it's a huge advantage. And yeah, if you've got strong values, then you should be certainly using that as part of your marketing.
Brilliant. And just on the flip side of that, is there anything that a purpose-driven organization or even a not-for-profit can learn from profit-driven organizations?
Yeah, definitely. I think a mistake on the flip side is relying fully on values. In reality, people do want a service that's going to deliver some kind of value for them. So, like, for example, Tony's chocolate, which I absolutely love, have incredibly strong values, and they're all about like improving the conditions of people in their supply chain. But it's also delicious chocolate, and they advertise the wonderful flavors. In the same way, you have to have that core offer defined, and the values sort of help you to elevate that, I suppose.
I suppose in a similar way, one of the things when we're working with charities is often we push them to be explicit in their asks. So actually be clear on what you're asking people, and also give it a connection of, if you were to regularly donate £20, this is what it means. So be clear on what you're asking people.
Yeah, absolutely.
The AI bit, how and why does AI fit into personal branding? To me, when we were talking about the topics to discuss in this, I was surprised that that came up. But you were actually saying there is a way in which you can connect personal branding with the use of AI. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a bit of an AI power user. The setup that I've got, I use Google Gemini, but I have multiple what are called gems that work for me on different aspects of my business. So some of it is strategic consulting, and I genuinely have conversations about what's the best approach for this business. But a lot of it is also copywriting and supporting me with content. So I've trained these gems to know the kind of things that I'm going to talk about and how I'm going to talk about them. The reality is that if you're building a personal brand, or if you're building a content brand, you're going to need to produce an awful lot of stuff. The modern world, particularly LinkedIn, they need a constant feed of things to keep in people's minds. So that's quite a big ask, especially if you're a founder or a CEO running a thriving business. You've got a lot to do. AI can help you to scale that up without kind of burning out and constantly feeling like you've got a blank page and writer's block. The caveat to all that is that I would never put out something that is fully AI generated. There's such a pushback against that. So what you can do is you can use AI for creating that first iteration, and then allow yourself to expand on that and to personalize that.
Excellent. And moving on to the different types of personal branding. I, in my sort of limited understanding of it, often think of personal branding in individual sort of low level but constant communication. How does personal branding connect up with broader campaigns? So an organization might have an overall focus, Christmas or seasonal campaign or whatever like that. How does personal branding, can it be more strategic?
Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, I would say you keep describing yourself as not that great at personal branding. I would definitely disagree. I think you've got some credentials
But
there.
we're trying.
Exactly. Yeah, in terms of the organization, if you're at any kind of fairly advanced stage, you're going to have some form of content calendar, campaign calendar, I would see that personal branding is a channel. So in the same way that you're thinking, what are we going to put on our website? What are we going to send out in an email campaign? You should also be thinking, really importantly, how are our people going to disseminate this information? So, and it's a lot to ask every employee in your business to suddenly become a personal brand specialist. But if you have campaigns that are punctuating the year that allow them to talk about that, maybe, for example, I've worked a lot in recruitment, we would do a salary survey, it would have lots of insights in it. Suddenly, you're giving your whole team all sorts of things that they can start talking about. You can give them inspiration. You can give them AI tools to help them to work on that and make that personal. Yeah, it just kind of those bigger pieces support the personal brands that everyone's building.
I've got to ask where it goes wrong. And to be honest, people are always interested in what are the biggest mistakes that you see people make when it comes to personal branding?
I think generally it's over reliance on a single launch campaign or one thing that they're going to do that they think is suddenly going to light up the world. Uh, we've launched a new office in a new place. We're suddenly going to announce that the whole world's going to light up and we're going to be flooded with leads. And reality is that it's more of a slow burn. It's more of a long game. You really have to be thinking about that. Um, the other key aspect that I think people miss is that yes, you can put content out there, you can build those relationships long term, but you do also need a level of outbound strategy. You need to be contacting people directly. You need to be connecting with people directly. Um, so if you're not doing that, you're not growing your network, and um, you need to have that kind of focused element as well.
Okay. So it works best when it's in conjunction with certain intentional actions with actual outreach. You can't just be constantly.
Correct, which often feels like the thing that people put off. They're not so keen on doing that outreach. That feels a bit you know, cheeky and like pushy. There's a way to do it nicely, but you do have to have that as part of your strategy as well.
So I've listened to this Between Me and You episode, and I'm now thinking, okay, I need to get out there more. I need to, express authentically, my opinion, my approach to whatever organization I work with. What are the first 3 or so steps that someone should take when they're actually going to embrace personal branding?
Yeah. Honestly, I think those first steps are pretty difficult. Pushing through that in some way, once you've done those first three, as you talked about, it's suddenly going to start to be easier. You're probably not going to get it right in your first three, but that doesn't really matter. It's more about like taking the taking the bull by the horns and giving it a go and getting out there. I suppose the easiest ways to start, firstly, would be to start engaging with other people's content. That's going to give you a sense of what's working for other people, what you might be able to replicate. And it also starts those conversations. That's really important. And I would genuinely recommend go to AI tools. With an AI tool, you can say, I want to start personal branding. Um, It'll ask you, okay, tell me a bit about like what your business is and what your objectives are and a bit about you. And then it'll start to give you recommendations of here's what you could start posting. It, it's a difficult thing to start doing. So an AI tool can help you. So why not embrace that?
Is there a way in which personal branding work can also work in a collaborative way? Can you collaborate to create content together?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think that's really important. I love the idea of, I call it collaborative content campaigns. So again, it's that we talked about the outreach messaging. What do you say to people? If you can say to people, could you take part in this campaign we're doing? Could you contribute some expertise to something? And then you go away and form that into some kind of resource that actually is going to be really valuable because you've got lots of insight from people. Then when you come to publish it as well, you've got all those people who contributed that can share it on. I think that's a really kind of good thing to put into your campaign planner. yeah, collaborative content campaigns, I think that's going to be the way forward.
Excellent. Brilliant. Thanks, Will. Really insightful conversation. Really enjoyed the chat today. If people are listening and they go, actually, I need some professional advice on this, how can they best get in touch with you?
Well, you won't be surprised to know I'm on LinkedIn. So just search for my name, and I'd love a connection request. That'd be great. My website is thinksideways.co.uk.
Excellent. Thank you. So to our viewers, thanks for joining us for this episode of Between Me and You. If you found this discussion helpful, please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. And we encourage you to continue the conversation there and probably on LinkedIn too. Be sure to join us for the next episode of Between Me and You. Thanks and bye for now.